Hey, what's up guys, Will here for GSM Arena. It's that time yet again, and we have two new iPhones here, the iPhone 11 Pro and the Pro Max. They're the sequels to the XS and the XS Max, and though some people might say same old, they actually bring a lot of new features. So what are we waiting for? Let's take an in-depth look in our full review. The iPhone 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max both appear quite similar to the iPhones of last year, but they bring quite a few upgrades, including better performance, bigger batteries, brighter screens, and new cameras. The design won't surprise anyone. The front and back are covered in Gorilla Glass, and there's a stainless steel frame holding it all together, which debuted on the iPhone X. We have the 11 Pro in Space Gray, and the 11 Pro Max in Midnight Green. The new frosted rear glass gives a fresh look. It makes smudges and fingerprints a lot less noticeable, and is more resistant to scratches. One thing people are divided about is the look of the square triple camera setup on the back. You may love it or hate it, but at least it's quite thin, and the phones won't wobble on a table as much as last year's. Another change over last year is the level of water resistance. The XS generation were certified to handle submersion in 2 meters of water for half an hour, and these can take up to 4 meters, so a pond rather than a swimming pool. The biggest difference between the two phones is the size. The 11 Pro is a breeze to use with one hand, while with the Pro Max, it's a little more of a stretch. But you do get the benefit of the larger display. The 11 Pro Max has a 6.5-inch OLED panel, while the 11 Pro's is 5.8 inches. The bezels have been slightly increased this year, but it's hard to notice. The panels both look great. They have the same pixel density at 458 ppi, and it hasn't changed from the last generation. You get HDR10 and Dolby Vision support, and excellent color accuracy. Back again is True Tone Adjustment, basically an automatic white balance that will adjust based on the ambient light. Apple is debuting what it calls XDR, or Extreme Dynamic Range, on these displays. This means you get double the contrast of the OLEDs we saw on the iPhone XS and XS Max, and these can get a lot brighter too. These are among the brightest smartphone screens on the market, at over 800 nits with the manual slider, and they're still color accurate even with the brightness turned way down. The screens have the same fast 120Hz refresh rate for touch input as before, but we wish that Apple had increased the screen's refresh rate as well. It's still the standard 60Hz. There's no always-on display either, so you have to wake up the phone to check what's going on, or program the LED flash to blink when you have a notification, but it is on the back. Like on previous iPhones, you'll have to use Face Unlock or a PIN to unlock these devices. There's no fingerprint reader. But the facial recognition is industry-leading, and quite secure as well, thanks to the dedicated True Depth camera for 3D facial mapping. Both phones have a stereo setup for audio, with the second loudspeaker acting as the earpiece. Their outputs are very balanced, and loudness is very good, with decent bass for smartphone speakers. As expected, there's no 3.5mm jack, and no adapter in the box. You do get earpods though that you can plug into the lightning port. Like before, storage isn't expandable, so choose wisely which option you get. Especially if you shoot a lot of videos, the smallest one probably won't cut it. The new iPhones all run the latest iOS 13 out of the box, and it looks pretty familiar. The navigation gestures are the same as they were before, and by now feel quite intuitive. But there are a few new features to explore. The removal of 3D touch means that now you don't need to apply pressure to the screen to open context-sensitive actions. Just a long press will do, and you get the same haptic feedback. iOS 13 also brings a system-wide dark mode, which will darken all of your white backgrounds. You can even set it on a schedule, as it will save you some battery. Siri, Apple's digital assistant, can again be summoned by holding down the power key, and with iOS 13 there's a new voice with more natural speech.
Why did the tomato turn red? Because it saw the salad dressing.
The Photos app has been overhauled, and there's a new, more powerful editing mode. You can see what the photo looks like before and after the edit, and there are many new options and intensity sliders. You can edit videos too and adjust their exposure, among plenty of other settings. The two iPhone 11 Pros pack the new 7nm A13 chipset, which brings a new GPU, and is supposed to be both faster and more power efficient than last year's A12. Along with this, we get 4 gigs of RAM. In benchmarks, CPU performance scores are 20% higher than the last generations, and better than any Android phone out there. There are layers of graphene for even heat dispersion along the back, and the phones have good sustained performance without much thermal throttling. Gaming performance is great, and I didn't run into any issues at all. Both the iPhone 11 Pro and Pro Max have larger batteries than last year, at about 3200 and 4000 mAh respectively. In our battery life tests, the 11 Pro Max scored an excellent 102-hour endurance rating, the highest we've seen from an iPhone. The iPhone 11 Pro's score wasn't quite as high, but still better than last year, with an endurance rating of 86 hours. For the first time ever, Apple has bundled an 18-watt wired fast charger with its iPhones. With it, the iPhone 11 Pro Max was able to charge from 0 to 50% of its battery in 30 minutes. When we did the same with the regular 11 Pro, we got 58%. There is support for Qi wireless charging with both models too. One of the major upgrades on the new iPhones is the third camera. The new triple camera setup brings an ultra-wide shooter on top of the main and telephoto cameras, which both have OIS. All of the cameras are at 12 megapixels. An interesting new feature is capture outside the frame. If you're shooting with the main or telephoto cam, the phone can use information from the ultra-wide to provide you with a wider shot if you accidentally crop someone out. Photo quality is the same between the two phones, so we'll go by camera instead of model. First, let's see how daylight images from the main cam turn out. They have exemplary detail, extremely low noise, and good dynamic range. The colors are accurate, though a bit washed out, and contrast isn't superb. These images don't really pop. Also, there's a little too much sharpening. The telephoto camera has an f2.0 aperture, the widest in the industry. Zoomed photos have equally rich detail and low noise as the main cam, and here the sharpening is toned down, which is nice. The colors and contrast are about the same. The ultra-wide camera doesn't have OIS or autofocus, but images turn out just fine. Nothing spectacular though. There's enough detail and a bit of noise here and there. The colors, contrast, and dynamic range match the main camera, and you get automatic correction for the barrel distortion. Portrait shots are taken with a telephoto cam by default, but you can take them with the main cam as well. You can choose blur strength and lighting effects, and even change the strength of the digital light. If there's good lighting, portraits from the telephoto come out great, with very good subject separation and convincing defocus backgrounds. Portraits from the main cam are still decent, but subject separation isn't quite as good. Let's see how the cameras do in low light. Apple is debuting its version of night mode, and it actually turns on automatically when it's dark enough out. It takes 2 or 3 seconds to snap a photo, and quality is pretty amazing, even class leading. Night mode shots from the main cam have plenty of detail, balanced sharpening, excellent contrast in colors, and nice exposure. And not a single photo we shot came out blurry. If for some reason you wanted to shoot without night mode, you'd still end up with plenty of detail and low noise. But the exposure is much darker, and colors are washed out. Night mode works on the telephoto camera too, and results are pretty much as impressive as on the main cam. However, if the light is too low, the phones tend to switch to a digital crop from the main camera, despite the telephoto's wide aperture. With the ultra-wide camera, there is no night mode, and the results are quite bad, as we've seen from these sort of cameras on other phones. Moving on to the selfie cam, which has been upgraded this year too. It still makes use of the secondary 3D TOF cam, but now the main camera is 12 megapixels with a wider 23mm lens. Selfies use Smart HDR, and quality is top-notch. There is more than enough detail, balanced sharpening, good colors, and great dynamic range. There is no autofocus though, and the default image is cropped. Selfie videos can now be taken in up to 4K at 60 FPS. They have stabilization and great stereo audio quality. It's perfect for vlogging, except for the lack of autofocus. You may have also heard of the new slow-motion selfie videos called Slowfies. They're taken in 1080p at 120 FPS and are actually kind of fun to play around with. Videos from the rear cameras can also be taken in up to 4K at 60 FPS, and you can even shoot from all 3 at once if you have the right app. The phone will even switch seamlessly between cameras if you zoom while recording. All 3 cameras use electronic stabilization, and the videos are super stable. Quality-wise, videos from the main and telephoto cam are very good, with plenty of detail, low noise, spot-on sharpness, and true-to-life colors. Videos from the ultra-wide camera are lacking in detail and corners are soft, but the colors, contrast, and dynamic range are excellent. So there they are, the iPhone 11 Pro and the Pro Max. They bring a lot of meaningful upgrades over previous generations. You get much better battery life, brighter, more contrasty OLED screens, faster performance, new selfie cams, and more versatile triple cameras with night mode. Plus, of course, there's that cool frosted finish, which is quite durable. So how about downsides? Well, there's the notch, which in the era of hole punches and pop-up selfie cams now feels a bit outdated. And of course, there's the huge price, which everyone expects from an iPhone. And what's with the 64 gigs of storage option? Would anyone actually buy that? But honestly, no matter what I say here, people invested in Apple products will be interested in the new iPhones. And this time around, I really don't blame them. The iPhone 11 Pro and the Pro Max are excellent smartphones that bring some of the best features you can find these days. And if you can afford them, they definitely deserve a recommendation. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you on the next one.